Hi, this is Niki in Japan. I'm going to watch here an interesting YouTube video that I've seen from Nobita from Japan. So it's called Top 10 Reasons Not to Move to Japan. So this is kind of interesting. I mean, why would you make a video to tell people not to move to Japan?
Hey, what's up guys? So before we get into that, let's keep in mind these two things. Number one, what I'm gonna talk about doesn't always apply to every Japanese person or every place in Japan, because this is based on what I see in Japan and my personal experience. You're gonna have a different experience and perspectives about Japan, so I'm sure you're gonna disagree a lot, but let me know after watching this why you disagree. Number two, this is not for discouraging you from coming to Japan, and I'm not gonna be just ranting about how disgusting Japan is. It's more like I want you to make sure if Japan fits you and you can go well in this country. If you only watch TV shows or magazines, the impression or message you often get is Japan is great, it's a perfect country. We all agree Japan is awesome and interesting, but you need to acknowledge both good and bad, especially if you are moving here, and these can be the reasons you shouldn't move to Japan.
Alright, so Nobita has just finished his disclaimers 1 and 2. First, he says that this is just his opinion and he's not basically discouraging people from coming here. So I'm gonna start now with number 10. Number 10, weather.
Number 10, weather. Now this totally depends on where you live right now, what country you compare with. But at least to me personally, Japan doesn't really have a great weather. As you already know, it's quite hot and humid in summer, and I really hate it. Some people even die because of that every year. Then winter must be great in Japan? Not so much actually. Of course, Japan doesn't have a too cold winter like Chicago or Minnesota, but the Japanese building or apartment can be really cold in winter because we don't have central heating, which is quite common in the West, and many people just rely on AC, so it's only partly warm, not whole building. In addition to that, we have quite many earthquake, tsunami, typhoon, or that kind of natural disaster.
Yeah, I quite agree with the weather part. I come from a tropical country and I'm not enjoying the summer here. Although it's summer all year round in my country, summer here is just way too humid. Some people like it. Like I met a friend from Argentina and he's enjoying summer here. So it must really depend on the people. Nobita here mentioned that winter here is not great because it's very cold in buildings here. I do agree with that it can get cold in buildings because there's no central heating, but it's not crazy cold. So maybe Westerners would find it weird because it's hard to warm the houses. There's no central heating. I have French friends who complain about that they have to like turn their ACs on to keep them warm. But coming from a tropical country, I'm quite enjoying the winter. Next, number 9, having a pet.
Number 9, having a pet. Of course, you can have a pet in Japan and you're gonna often see those people at the park. But if you live in an apartment in a big city like Tokyo, it can be really difficult. Now it depends on what kind of animal you want to have. If it's a small pet, probably it's more likely to be okay. But still, many places in Japan are not so welcome about bringing a pet. Not just apartment, but also hotel, cafe, and so on. Even if you are allowed, they usually require extra money, like 20% more. And keep in mind, Japanese apartments are quite small, maybe too small to have a pet, and the walls are often thin. So maybe your neighbors are not happy and you might get a lot of complaints if your pet is quite noisy. In the end, Japan is not really a pet-friendly country, and it can be a big issue if you really like to have a pet.
Yeah, so with the pet part, I don't have a pet, so I don't have issues with that. But maybe for people having a pet, I kind of agree with him. Apartments here are kind of small, the walls are thin. I mean, yeah, the walls are very thin. I don't have issues with pets, but I have issues with the noise. I can hear everything here. Yeah, so if you have a pet, maybe your neighbors will not be very happy with that, hearing your pet or whatever. Next.
Number 8, smoking. Now this is a non-smoker perspective. I'm sorry if you're a smoker. That would be a different story. So in Japan, smoking outside is not usually allowed, except for a certain specific area. Smoking inside is more likely to be okay. Like in a station, restaurant, hotel, or cafe. They usually offer some smoking rooms or areas. My biggest issue is, however, it's often not really separated, and you might have to deal with second-hand smoke while eating, which can be really annoying, but it can be much worse. When I was working for a Japanese company, I often had to go to izakaya with my boss, and they started smoking just next to me, and I'm almost dead. And I was really wishing Japan didn't allow people to smoke inside.
Yeah, I don't like the smoking culture here as well. There are smoking and non-smoking designated areas in restaurants, but you'd be surprised it's not a separate room. There's like not a wall or whatever, no partition separating you from the smoking area. It's really weird. I don't like that as well. I hate smoking. I'm not a smoker, so I hate the secondhand smoke that I breathe here whenever I go out. I heard that in Japan it's illegal to smoke outdoors. It's illegal to smoke in public spaces. But in Osaka, there's just a lot of people smoking out in the open. And I'm like, as a gaijin, I mean, these Japanese would be complaining and maybe they'd want to hit me or something. But I wanted to hit them back and tell them, F you, don't smoke in the public.
Number 7, job hopping. Of course, depending on your industry or profession, but usually this is considered quite negatively, at least compared to Canada, for example. Now, when I say this, it's not like just 2 months or 3 months. That would be too bad in any country. Even if you have worked for 2 years, 3 years, or even 5 years, that's still not enough, and you are considered like not loyal or patient. And in the end, you might have a really hard time of finding a new job. So at least from my experience, the pressure you can't quit the job, even if you really don't like the company, is quite strong. By the way, according to a survey, Japanese are less likely to ask a higher pay, and they just deal with it. Maybe they feel guilty about that. To be fair, nowadays it's quite changing though. It's more and more common. And again, it depends on your industry. In some industries, it's quite common and acceptable. So maybe you wanna consider that when you look for a job in Japan.
So Nobita from Japan mentioned about job hopping. Japan is a very traditional country, and I'm a millennial. I don't know in your part of the world, but I'm from the Philippines. It's very frowned upon, I think mostly in Asia, to change jobs often. But you would see in surveys, statistics, in studies that the younger generation, millennials and Gen Zs, they job hop quite often. I do. I graduated in 2015. I've had 6 years work experience, and I've been in a ton of companies. Yeah, I've been in at least 5 companies already.
Seriously?
For that short span of time. The Japanese frown upon that. To me, as a millennial, I would think that, yeah, I know I changed jobs, but I'm after the experience. I'm after the learning that I got from the job. And I don't know. I think proactive companies would see it as a learning curve, a learning experience, but very traditional thinkers, the boomers, think that we're not loyal. Knock knock, there's no loyalty anymore. I mean, look at all the consumer goods that you see in the market. There's no loyalty anymore. It's so easy to change perspective because you have, I think, as an employee, right? You have to win the trust of your employee for them to stay. So make it worth it for us to stay in a company. I guess that's my message to companies, to HR managers, to recruiters who say that you're not loyal to the company. Yeah, because that the company doesn't deserve my loyalty. Yeah, I guess that's my take on this. I'm very pro job hopping. I'm pro to having a lot of jobs. I'm pro to freelancing. I'm okay with part-time jobs, having multiple jobs, as long as that experience enriches a person. In Japan, that's very frowned upon, and I'm very vocal with that when I'm asked in interviews. I'm very vocal that I know that in Japan this is frowned upon, but I'm after my self development. And if you're not happy with that, I probably wouldn't be happy working for this company either. Okay, next.
Number 6. Unnecessary overtime work. Probably this is no need to explain. I seriously think that this is really bad for Japan. Nobody benefits. Even though more and more companies and government start doing like this, the pressure is still quite strong. Like I said, I often had to go drinking with my boss after work. I felt like it's an obligation because everyone else was going there. The same goes to overtime work. I really didn't like that. At the same time though, I didn't want to be the first one leaving the office, and I am seen like a lazy worker. I'm sure many Japanese still feel pressure like that. Having said that, freelancing is getting common in Japan recently, and more people having flexible work lifestyle. See, you don't have to work for a company, and you can be self-employed. Maybe that would be your best choice in Japan.
Yeah, I kind of agree with this, with his point here about unnecessary overtime work. Aside from overtime work, I was kind of surprised because my impression of Japan is that they value time so much. Yes, they have very strict time, right? If your contract says you have to work at 9 a.m., you should be there at 9 a.m., not after 9. 9:01 is not 9 a.m. So they have very strict time requirements, but I was kind of surprised. So I'm now working at the teaching industry, and I was surprised. Most of the jobs here would, for instance, this is an example. I had a job where I was asked to report at 9 a.m. So, for courtesy, I would want to get to my workplace at what, 5 to 10 minutes before time, just for me to prepare or whatever, right? But I was kind of surprised because this didn't happen in just one instance. It happened in a lot of cases where I was asked to arrive 1 hour before time for preparation. And just recently, I had to push back because I'm not getting paid for that 1 hour preparation, you know? So I'm like, I had to push back, and I had to ask. I really had to ask that, wait, I thought the job is 9 a.m. It's not 8 a.m. It's not what we agreed for. I also have other duties before time, and I can arrive there at 9 a.m. as per agreement, but not 8 a.m. because I'm not getting paid for that. It's very frowned upon here. Most people just say, yeah, but you have to suck it up because it's the job that you're offered. But for me, it disrespects me. You know, Japanese wanted to be respected, and they think that you show that respect by being on time. But staying here, and so far, what I can see is that they're very disrespectful. Honestly, they're very disrespectful in that aspect. Not only at work, I don't know, personally, like some people also, not only as workmates, some Japanese actually don't respect your time. I would ask I actually have like group of gaijin friends, foreigner friends, and I would ask them if, hey, is it just me or do you also experience this? And apparently, our expectation is that as foreigners, when we arrived here, we know the time culture here. We know how strict, how prompt everyone is when it comes to time. When, for instance, at the train station, If it announces that it will arrive at 7:03, it will arrive exactly at 7:03. Not 7:02, not 7:04, 7:03. Not extra. It won't be late for even a minute. It's that prompt. And I have asked some friends, some foreigner friends as well, if they experience it, and it's more prevalent. The disrespect in time is more prevalent among colored foreigners than white foreigners here, because what I see here is that there's this superiority complex that the Japanese, I don't know, it's their perspective to white people. They think that whites are better than other colored people. And as a colored foreigner, I'm affected with that. They don't respect me because I'm Filipino, I'm Asian, I'm colored.